Today we are joined by my good friend Hannah. Hannah is a health coach that dives into the other side of the personal training, health and wellness space. We're talking things today that aren't your usual calories in versus calories out. We're talking metaphysical, we're talking epigenetics, psychology, woo-woo, spirituality, and a whole heap of other cool stuff. Hannah is a really special person. Make sure you guys sit back, take some notes, because this one goes a little bit all over the show because we've both got ADHD. This one is a really cool one. Make sure you guys check the description for all of Hannah's socials and enjoy, guys. Welcome to the R.Y.S.E Movement Podcast, a place where legends just like you learn how to raise your standards every day. Welcome to another episode of the R.Y.S.E Movement Podcast. I'm Dave and I'm joined with my good friend Hannah today. So before we get into anything, I'm going to dive into Hannah's little blurb. Hannah is a health coach who has been hyper obsessed with how one's genes affect our life and vice versa, knowing we are all unique and it's our biology, psychology that Hannah froths the most. Me too, I exactly the same. But all she wants in everyone is to unlock who they were literally born to be unapologetically, owning their genes. We're not here to survive, we're here to thrive. Hannah's journey started 15 years ago when she conquered layers of addiction and then was fascinated with biology and the foundations of health supporting recovery. I would very much like to introduce Hannah Louise to the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to see what we unravel in our rabbit holes.
So, I've known you since 2015, I think it was. We had a couple of conversations sitting around World Gym Burley while I was doing the supplement shop down there. And I want to touch on the first thing that, the first conversation we ever had together. So we were talking about something to do with psychology and genes and family history and stuff like that. And the first thing that stuck out like absolute dog's balls to me was you go, "Oh, you're a martyr."
No ADD hyperfixation memory there whatsoever.
Yeah, none whatsoever.
None whatsoever.
But it stuck out to me because in my family, we've labeled my shithead of a dad as the martyr. Like everything he did is just, I sacrificed for this. Look how fucking good I am. That. And when you said that to me, it fucking hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, shit, I've done all this work to try and not be him. And there it is. So thank you for that.
I feel you. And it's funny because years later when you told me that, I was like, I kind of, I remember a lot of what I say, but I'm like, shit, I've got to stop just saying what I think or see, or, that's the mesomorphic gift I have, which we'll tap into later what that means. But yeah, and the ADD just over expressing. But I never thought that I had that effect, and it was just really interesting. But then don't you find that, I'm just going to go down a little tangent, find that really interesting that we then profiled you later on in my epigenetic profiling system as the type that actually puts others first, nurtures biologically. And so obviously in an imbalanced scenario, that can go a bad way and it can also be a good trait, but it's literally based on that prolactin hormone. So it's quite funny that that's your genetic wound in a sense as well. So, but yeah, I actually felt really bad that I'd said that. Clearly it was not a bad thing because we are friends.
Yes, exactly. I mean, whenever someone says something to me, I've learned that the moment that I feel, the pinch of pain, I'm like, I don't like that. That's, there's some rejection or something around that. That's a perfect chance for me to have more introspection. It's like, why did that noise that they made out of their face mean something to me?
I'm still yet to learn that because I'm really resistant on triggers, but I think that's from my wound as in my family as the black sheep, the addict, the naughty one, the rebellious one, the one that just kind of wouldn't slot in with my martyr mother. So I was because I feel like my whole life I spent proving that I wasn't this, alcoholic and all these things. And I really feel like I've made a new version of myself and that those are labels. And so, yeah, I still struggle to want to look at triggers because I feel like I'm always being told there's something wrong. And so it actually feels like the opposite for me. And sometimes that can be a healthier thing. Do you know what I mean? It's thank you, no, thank you. That's why I think of how you've received what I said. And I'm like, oh, okay, I won't be, hypocritical because if someone said that to me, I might deflect it. So,
yeah.
But again, we take in what we need at the time. Hey.
Yeah, that's it. I remember another conversation you and I had. We were talking about shadow work because I froth shadow work. I feel like it's one of it's one of the hardest, but it's also one of the fastest ways of individuating and becoming who you're meant to be. It's
Sure.
removing all those layers of pain and trauma and all the maladaptive behaviors and thoughts and emotions and things that we do to get through
Mm.
life. And I remember bringing it up to you, and you go, "And that's why I don't do it." And I was like, "Whoa, that's a fucking interesting perspective."
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, like
Well,
I've never had
yeah,
someone flat out just go, yeah, I don't do it. Just full on no.
yeah, and this is where I'm still trying to, you know me, like even if I'll be certain in my own where I'm at, I'll still be looking at the other perspective, but it's like a firewall. I'll put it up first and then I'll allow it in later. Like even today we had that, we won't go into that. But like and I do that as it is a protective barrier. And there's like, there's obviously good and bad to that. But I think because this really truly is my heartfelt kind of modality for life until that changes, in epigenetics, one of the things that really showed up was in my biology, positive psychology is really like useful. Like, so not everyone likes that. They think it's bypassing and all this spiritual stuff. Like I'm woo, but I'm not woo woo. So I don't judge it. I'm just like, because I've been to quit drinking, I like did some weird shit, like 15 years ago before it was even cool to do half of the things, because I did it on I wish it was around. Like I was so isolated going through like trying to just get parasympathetic and do my healing. So I think one of the reasons I do resist is because I did a big chunk at that point. But the other thing is, for example, like the two body types, which is your body type and one other one, that need to go really deep and philosophical. Like it's an actual biological need, whereas my need is in the moment, urgent, let me pivot, and it can't be too heavy. So obviously we can take from each other's, camps and be anything. But it's because I felt so unsafe. If the longer I sit in something, the worse it gets for me. And I actually get more from like moving and walking and like getting the connection that way. So to have that insight when I did my training as a coach in this modality actually made me see why that was so hard for me and why I resist it. But again, I'm open to the whole thing. So yeah, like I don't need the deeper why. I just need to know the pivot, and then that allows me to actually lean in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes heaps of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did your journey come about? Like what was, give us an overview of your childhood. What were the themes and experiences that you had and that led you on the path before you had that big like epiphany pivot moment?
Yeah, yeah. So I'll try not to go too deep because I think we all have there's like a few stories there, but there's worse and better off than what I've grown up with. So I'm 42 now, nearly 43. My biggest journey was in my late 20s. And so I'll kind of reverse engineer it. Back in my late 20s, 26, 27, met a boyfriend that kind of was a catalyst to change because my drinking was like not appropriate for our relationship. My smoking, like I literally chain smoked a pack a day. Like anyone that knows me is like, no way. I'm like, if you met me as a smoker, you would have been like, that girl's never quitting. Like she's literally anxious and that dopamine. So having the ADHD thing later on, I'm like, that's totally why. So went on this Saturn return catalyst in my late 20s to kind of just start looking at my addictions. And as these blanket layers got lifted, obviously what was underneath was sitting there. And at that point, I think I did Landmark and we did a fear exercise, and it was what came up was an incident of sexual type in my childhood, and it was a memory that I'd always remembered, but I never had any emotions. And I had like it was just weird. Like I didn't know anything about the brain before that. I didn't know anything. I always trained at the gym, but I didn't know any PD stuff and or spirit. I was naturally, I think, spiritual. I always had that weird, just razor intuition. Bit more, got called dark angel when I was younger, and now light angel when I'm older. Like, and I was just like, okay, so. And so reverse engineering underneath all of those layers of addiction was this incident. And I actually, it was and again, it's a bit of an overshare, but not because you asked. But what actually was allowed was I actually got to actually have a conversation with that person and actually kind of heal it, and something had happened to them. And it was like a passed down kind of thing. But it was a really big layer of my trauma. And, it's kind of interesting because that was the first time too that I put on, oh no, the second time in my life that I put on a pretty rapid amount of weight gain. And so through that journey, I was doing spiritual stuff and like breath work back in when I was 27. As I said, people didn't do it. Like it was just weird. I'd been just come out of real estate, so a corporate career for like 9 years, and yeah, and then I just health and well-being just became, it was always a top value, and it just became the value that really allowed me to heal. That plus some of the spiritual stuff. And yeah, I gained a lot of weight. I, 10, 13 kilos in like 9 months. And that's when I first learned that cortisol response and that genetic that's sort of, under stress, more prone to put on weight and protection. And so I did some weird woo-woo programs like called Shapeshifter Fat Loss. Oh no, actually, sorry. After that, I actually lost 10 kilos in 3 weeks from doing breath work, forgiveness affirmations, visualizations, and a few other weird like Om Namah Shivaya kind of like just stuff I'd never done before. But what I was doing was turning off that stress response, and the parasympathetic came in. So I was a bit weird with fat loss and weight loss, and it's a massive part of my life. Like it still is, it's still a wound. And it kind of, yeah, then pushed me into health and fitness because I was obsessed with the physiology of like hormone issues, all these other things that got, shown up out of the trauma and the nervous system and the genetics and all of those expressions. And then I ended up in epigenetics. So as well, in my childhood, I grew up with an alcoholic father. So I'm going to go back a step. I grew up with an alcoholic father and then a mother that smoked cigarettes, chain smoked cigarettes. So there was a very codependent kind of very, just drama, dysfunctional, functioning alcoholic kind of upbringing. No violence at me, but like, things getting smashed around the house as a kid, just that constant nervous vibration. So the combination of my own trauma plus growing up in that, like just shifty kind of environment creates so much guilt and so much is that me and like those esteem issues and all of that. And then I didn't fit in at class as well. And I think it was a combination of, again, the ADHD, we've both got that diagnosis. I think there's Gabor Mate's version of it's a bit genetic. I think there's definitely genetics in alcoholism and, predispositions to what's going to express, but then obviously those traumas. So then we can go down D Martini route. But by the time I was 16, I actually got sent to AA by my mom, which was a big resentment. And that's where that resistance to someone telling me what's wrong with me comes from, because I kind of listened to it and I went to AA for a while. But I remember this soul moment as a 16 or 17-year-old going, this is like really great. Like these people are sober. I'm okay with, this. But I had this soul thing where I was like, you're going to be a non-drinker, but it won't be from sitting here in this fear-based environment. And no disrespect for that fellowship whatsoever. I've got friends 30 years sober and all of those things. But for me, it was like, there's another way. And I knew I'd become this non-drinker. And then you fast forward back to that period of time that I mentioned, those catalysts to heal addiction. It was where I realized we're creative beings, and I ended up just creating what I wanted, not sitting there telling myself I'm an alcoholic. I'm like, well, and this is again this positive framework. Okay, well, what do I want to be? Okay, I want to be a happy non-drinker. If it's just literally me who cannot drink on this planet, that's what I'm going to create. So I did everything that I could grab onto, any weird shit, just so I could become this happy non-drinker. And I didn't drink for 10 years. So basically that all enmeshed together. And it was just a soul path. And then I ended in epigenetics. And funnily, in our evolutionary glitch book that's about the wounds of the genetic types and genetic predispositions, mine was drinking. And it's quite funny that that's actually, yeah. So yeah, I don't see myself now as an alcoholic. I felt like if you sat in a room saying that, you'd be probably telling your vibration that that's what you are. Again, nothing, it works and everything has its place. And if I hadn't have, I don't think if I had have gone to that at 16, I wouldn't have had this spiritual handbrake that probably saved my life, because I did go back out and drink for about 6 years in my 20s, like most people. Real estate agent with salespeople and alcohol, like pretty breeding ground. So yeah, like, so that's pretty much it. And then health and well-being just became my obsessive foundation, and obviously like my witch for the bitch kind of love it. I went through love addiction, sex addictions, food, sugar, all of the other things. So like I would say now I don't have any binge issues, because I know when dopamine's playing out and it's like cauliflower rice with protein powder and me wanting to compulsively eat it because my dopamine's low. But I definitely still have a pattern in my nervous system with that. Even the weight thing actually initially happened when I was 9 years of age, running from that trauma and that predator, and then I hit a wall and gained weight for protection. So it's really fascinating because I'm in that season right now, which you know about, where I've gone from being really lean to like kind of the other side, and I want to come back in and heal in the balance. But yeah, it's like layers of trauma just get triggered at different times in our life.
Mhm.
So that's my story. Sorry, it was long-winded.
Not long-winded at all. The thing that I want to open up, because your story and my story, they're not very similar. However,
Yes.
they rhyme. You know, there's a lot of themes
Mm.
that are very similar.
Mhm. Mhm.
What is it, do you think? Because I know out of all of the clients that I've worked with out of the last, 12 and a half years sort of thing, I've never met anyone with a story or wounding or psychology makeup like you or I. Do you think that
Yeah.
there's a large part of the population that are repressing and ignoring this part of themselves that are like us? Because I've always known I'm a weirdo. I've always known that I'm different and
Yeah.
neurodivergent, autistic, and all that sort of thing. Like I
Yeah.
accepted that when I was like 12. I was like, oh fuck, you guys think I'm weird, so I'm the weird guy. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Give a shit.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
do you reckon that there's a big piece of the population that when anything strange comes up and they think about like woo woo sort of things, that they just immediately shut it off and go, nope, that's bullshit. I'm pushing that away. I don't need that.
I think it's a case of sensitivity in my perception. I think, again, Gabor Mate says it the best. Is like you can be born with higher sensitivities, and every ADHD addict, again, just for lack of description, they're the sensitive biologies. Like I literally, like even I went to a genetic doctor this week, and I've got some really intense hormone issues. So as soon as stress comes, it's like she explained my highways in the middle and all my back streets get backed up, and like so even my weight gain does my head in because it comes up from a cortisol response, but it's a billion different gene combinations. And I think that's that predisposition piece. So I think and what you notice with even empathy, people don't fucking understand or care about things they don't experience.
Mm.
But the really highly sensitive people do, because it's so amplified that you can drop it back to probably half the people. So I feel frustration sometimes when, like, at the moment I'm going through my own sort of stuff, and I don't have it to give to clients at the moment, yet I can help anyone in an instant. And I'm like, no one can really sort of help me. But I think it's just that gift and burden of always that polarized, two sides to it. Like, annoying because you'll go like this a little bit more, and you and I talk Martini as well, but I just think that's a case of sensitivity. So I agree with you in basic terms. We could summarize it that yeah, people, well, they're just not, there's no reason, there's no amplification,
Mm.
like the same traumas can happen in someone with a stronger constitution and shit's all good,
Yeah.
like I think it's, yeah. And then, from a spiritual perspective, I think that does push you into having to look at other realms and other things. Like whenever I'm too biological, I get smacked on my butt and I get put in the body that's more slow and altruistic and like yin, you know, um, because my little testosterone driven pocket rocket like goes too far and hits a wall that way. So that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the
What do
reason
you
why I
actually
asked,
think? Yeah.
I have this incongruence inside of myself at the moment that I've been trying to wrestle with. So
Hmm.
I'm extremely sensitive. I'm overly sensitive. I
Yeah.
cry at the fucking drop of a hat. Like, I watch ads, I watch, TikToks and reels and stuff like that. If there's something cute involving kids or puppies or something, I'm bawling my eyes out instantly. Like I can't turn that off.
Yeah.
My family, my mum, she's extremely empathetic, extremely like just she's a very sensitive person as well. Like I've coached
What's
sensitive.
her body type like? Would you say she's similar to you?
She's a like straightforward guardian, nothing else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, and I really believe you. But I mean, as Martini says, right? We're born with DNA that we use to, play out what we need to learn and evolve through.
Yeah.
So I chose alcoholism and some weight gain in relation to trauma.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
cool.
like
So
my
yeah.
incongruence is sitting like I know these people, I've coached these people, I am one of these people. And
Mm-hmm.
yet there's a part of my mind that's like, I don't know if it's like the autistic side of me that's like very fucking clear cut and direct and like, stop being a victim. Shut the fuck up and get on with it sort of thing. But then I think back, I'm like, but I have all this compassion for myself to be able to be gentle and sit through it and, to work through it. It's really interesting the disconnect I have in my mind when it comes to
Uh,
sensitivities.
I would say, so this is just an observation, and I haven't really looked at your profile, but in the profiling system that I use, I've never seen it be inaccurate. And when I say that, there's two parts to we've got what we call health types for anyone who's not listening, who doesn't know about genetic profiling that we do. So we've categorized these 6 body types that have these predispositions to certain hormones, but your health body type can be the opposite to your brain type. And what I've noticed in profiling hundreds and hundreds of people over the years is that the ones with a certain, like, so you and I have different body types. So I'm a connectivator, which is a more dynamic pocket rocket. I'm fast. I'm like in the moment, positive psychology, movement's number 1. You're a guardian, you're more grounded, slow, steady. You like things around you, but one thing that we correlate with is we've both been diagnosed with ADHD. But we also both probably, I haven't looked, as I said, but I have a crusader brain, which is a dopamine driven brain. So like it's a dichotomy. So for you, I would probably say that because we haven't visited, I mean, I think I was just starting as a coach. You were like one of my first people that I
Mm.
profiled outside of my class stuff. And I would say you probably have a dopamine driven brain. And so you're going to feel like you've got this dichotomy going in your epigenetic expression. But the double whammy for you too is that there's a prolactin dopamine apex, as we've talked about. So naturally your body seeks prolactin. So whatever your body's base hormone is, it's seeking that when it's stressed, it's seeking that for happiness. It's like always seeking that. So I use it as a really good analogy. And if someone's craving chocolate in my groups, I'm like, so their body's just seeking, probably seeking prolactin. So how do we nurture and make sure the tribe's okay? And when we appease that, does the chocolate craving go away, or you just want some fucking chocolate, right? If you're a serotonin driven body type, you can actually get serotonin from the chocolate. So there's a valid thing there. For me, it's oxytocin or it's movement, adrenaline. So if I move first, then I probably just don't really want the chocolate. And sometimes I do. So with that, what I'm trying to articulate is you're probably, even in the time I've seen you, like we've both oscillated in our weight. We both do, extreme comp stuff, and, we're bodybuilding fitness people. So we, it's a part of that build and catabolize and anabolize kind of season stuff and life stuff. But what I think happens is now you've turned your dopamine on, your prolactin's probably gone down, but your body still has to nurture, but it's now probably more direct and driven and less thought about others, because dopamine is just a seeking the soul. It's very leadership and lead from the front, but a guardian is lead with, from the pack.
Mm.
So I would say there's probably some running, but you chose that as a soul, if we want to look at it like that, or it's the thing you came here to equilibralize. Yeah, is that the word?
Create equilibrium.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think there's a word. As in, I know, yeah, I just need to say it differently. Yeah, so we just need you to, yeah, like it's like, again, I'm always fighting that dichotomy, like, because I'm really masculine and I get told not to be super masculine, but I've got high testosterone and adrenaline hormones. I want to go get shit done, and then I've got the dopamine thing, and I want to be, and I don't think it's a matter of not being feminine. It's just that like those hormones are dominant. So
Mm.
I'm really direct. And again, you can, it's not an excuse to be a dick, but I can be a dickhead.
Yeah.
But yeah, does that kind of maybe feel like some truth in like what you were
Yeah. So
figure out?
the biggest thing that I'm trying to integrate at the moment is the whole, like, coming from your language of thing, like PH 360 sort of language, is bringing that guardian energy, that big bear energy to say, like, to move the tribe forward and go, come on, like, you fucks, get going sort of thing. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to back you guys up, just keep moving sort of thing. But at the same time, like, the way that my mind works, because it's like my life is on 2 times speed mentally. minimum.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm constantly like, if I see something I want, I'm going to get it no matter what. Like that's
Yeah,
just the way that
yeah.
my brain
That's
works. There's that
pursuit. That's
dopamine hit.
dopamine. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Same
And
with me.
so
It's like, I've got a standard now of where my body needs to be, and everyone's like body love and all this shit, but it's just, it won't, with an occipital lobe driven body type as well, where I use the visual, I can't fucking turn that off. So
mm,
I've accepted it. And I'm like, it's not really a wound. It's actually just a lens my brain uses. So there's good and bad to it, right? And it's also my top value beauty business, like, so I'm not here to do just body love. Yes, I can learn some of that, but I'm fighting for my own truth in a good and bad way.
mm.
Everything's polarized, as we know. So yeah, keep going.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I love that you brought that up when it comes to, the polarity of things, learning it's like the more lenses that we view things through, because we all retain information, we all absorb information through the five senses, and it goes into a brain to be able to be interpreted as data.
Yeah.
The more that we create lenses that have different filters to be able to view things through, the more of a comprehensive view that we have to be able to view the environment around us. So the more
Yeah.
sense we can make out of it, because that's all that we're trying to do. Everything that we do, we're trying to create more and more sense to be able to know where that sits in our mind. It's like, cool, this thing sits here and I'm comfortable with it sitting here, and then I'll revisit it if I need to revisit it. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden we learn something new from the environment. It's like, cool, this perfectly fits in this thing here. I'm going to add to it and be able to make it more comprehensive and make it a better, more high definition map. Like that's the
And
way
it's
I.
like R.I.S. and cognitive bias. So it's like it's so hard, isn't it? Hey, it's like the gift is in our genetics and values and perceptions and wounds and all that shit. So it's a hard fucking thing to integrate. But as I
Mm,
said, it's like that's why I like, even if you just looked at what I measure, because we measure your phenotype for everyone, that's just how your genes are currently expressing. I can measure your genes last week, and then when you've had a trauma this week, and we could have more diabetes, in a neck measurement because blood, you had a traumatic experience, and in your DNA, your insulin, more prone to insulin resistance, and stress and cortisol will fuck up that part, and you could have eaten a whole heap of shit food as well. And so and then you're a guardian, so that's prolactin, and that might have like slowed your metabolism down to conserve energy to look after the tribe in a trauma. So it's fascinating stuff. Hey, and like as I said, it's like me. From a very little kid, people often take, when I'm in my best peak condition, they don't realize I'm actually down regulating female hormones and I feel best. And of course, I like to look my best, but looking best for me is athleticism. It's not just female vanity. And I'm struggling because I'm not athletic. So I'm like, I'm prey right now. And you think of the opposite, because when I'm in that, but like I actually feel rest and digest is when I will get eaten by that lion.
mm,
So this body type is particularly hard for me because I am a flight or fight DNA, whereas you're grounded. So you can just build some muscle and be grounded, or you can get fat and stay grounded. And as a guy, you're going to predispose, well, a fitness guy who's by choice, but like sadly, like if you don't understand this, a body can put on a lot of weight and then become obese and turn on obese genetics. And that's not a healthy thing. Just like I catabolize myself under stress. And that is because I go into fight or flight. So that's why I'm in this pendulum swing right now. I went too far the other way, and down regulated my genes and couldn't take in food. And now I've hit this other side. And it's just, I think I've just gone off tangent, but it's just so fascinating how we can express. So yeah, normally I can tangent back, but I can't remember what we were talking about
that's all
exactly.
good. We'll keep
It's all,
going from here.
it's pretty,
So, like I've said this to you a bunch of times, it's one of my favorite things. One of the favorite universal laws from the Kabbalion. It's the swing to the left is measured by the swing to the right.
yeah.
So, how far you go left, you're coming back right, regardless of how far you go. And that's
Oh,
the
I'm
law of
here.
like, it's the law of vibration. It's the law of oscillation.
Yeah.
Like as far as you put yourself out, to the furthest ends of the polarity, you're going to snap back to the opposite until you can find homeostasis. That's
Yeah.
why I love like DeMartini stuff when it comes to adding
Me
extra
too.
lenses on things to be able to view things through, because then it's like, oh, like am I present? Am I sitting with what is, or am I sitting with an ideal of what I want it to be? Am I sitting with a fantasy? Have I got rejection around this thing? Is this,
Yeah.
fear-based? Is this an infatuation? Like, where am I sitting? How far is my body being pulled to and fro in the past and in the future? Am I being polarized deliberately? Am I being polarized unconsciously? Am I
Yeah. Yeah.
living
Yeah.
like congruently right now, or am I just so fucking out and wide from where I am that it's making me not see reality
Yeah.
through a present lens? You know what I mean?
That's what I love, and that's what I think my point was coming back to, because you were talking about the perceptions, and I talk about like this justifying the predisposition of genetics, but I think that's because I'm owning part of my gift, and that's why I love someone like you, because we are polarized. You're one of the few people that can get through to me with the philosophical, because it's not a fucking 10-hour like explanation that will just, and that's not ADD. That's actually like, what's the next step? Like, I need to know the next step to be safe, not, I don't need to sit in it. Like, but I'll sit in it. I still have to sit in it because I'm human. So that's why I think, I've always loved, and I think too, it's a values. We've got that respect unconsciously of values in fitness being quite high, and health. So, like, we're going to get along and care about each other, because, as you know, like Martini says, like, you love people as long as they're supporting your values, and you support that when you talk to me, because you talk about Martini's perception and how that expresses in our genes. And then you'll talk about when I'm like, when I am struggling, it could be a philosophical thing and a wound and all this stuff, but I can't go deep without the biology piece around it. And you've always had that beautiful ability to talk, testosterone, and validate that for me. So I listen, and I love that. And I think that's what I was, again, trying to, talk my version of what I bring like, I think for me even too, I bring the physical to a lot of spiritual people, because I say I'm not woo woo and spiritual, but I fucking am. Like, but I'm just simplified. It's like this weird intuition. But if I start going down like deep, like, I don't even know what an archetype really is. But if you give me my archetype and then I've studied and hyperfixate on the little piece that you gave me, I'm okay. But if I have to study it for I don't, it just makes me stressed. Let me go for a walk and train some weights.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing about this, like, I went swing to the left. As you know, I went down to like 50 kilos, which is way too little for me. And I went into catabolization and I fucked all my muscle, and I'm 42 now. And this is where, like, this is a good conversation, because I want to hide, and I'm hiding in t-shirts, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just who I am as being, I hate when you say stuff about, like, I feel like for me, because I'm so direct about what upsets me, other people get uncomfortable, but like, I'm visual and I want to be in peak performance. That's the meso in me needs that athleticism to feel like I'm a panther. And at the moment, I'm a caged in my body panther. I'm a caged in my, like, can't go to the gym freely. And so, like, yeah, it's interesting. I'm more outside in. Do you know what I mean? But it's always got to have the inside in
Yeah.
that part. But yeah, that was a ramble.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm definitely inside out. I
Yeah.
I don't care. Like, I'll always show up and talk, and talk about like philosophical stuff, and psychology, talk about health and wellness, like, just share my perspective on things regardless of how I look.
Yeah.
It affects my confidence in presenting. Like a couple of years ago when I was at my biggest, when we first did my measurements and stuff like that, like, I was like 130 something kilos at my worst, and I was still sharing, I was still trying to teach and inspire and stuff like that, but I just
Mm.
felt incongruent. I felt like not myself. I wasn't authentic.
Totally. And that's exactly how I feel at the moment. That's why, like, I know I can be honest to you. I have been showing up though. Like, I think though, for me though, it's not just the values and the visual, but it's like I take it out of that. I speak that language because it's
Mm.
like I'm so visual. But it's really like I'm feeling a lot of the shame and the altruism and the hormones of prolactin and things that aren't natural for me, and they're really vulnerable. And to be honest, I've just overgiven to everyone else. And I've got all these clients that have, and again, that comes back to what we even started about before, how I've never met someone with all the sensitivities I have. And when I'm on, even if I'm in the center or too far to the, like, narcissistic side, people are not seeing how much I'm peddling. And it's like, that's that ADHD and the burnout. And I'm burned the fuck out. Like, I'm
Mm.
tired and I still am showing up, but I don't really want to be it's the first time I've crashed, because I'd say I have a 4 to 5 year cycle of crash. And even from not just our profiling, but from the doctor I'm speaking to, there's a lot more study on genes and my hormone issue. And my hormone issue, for everyone's interest, is out of half the cycle every month, it's like PMDD, which is like a very severe syndrome. And there's no, I've been to doctors and geneticists and naturopaths and integrated specialists and hormone like women doctors for like 20 years trying to sort it. And I think there's trauma in genetics running, but it's definitely like there wasn't, and that's another reason why I have such a gift for my clients, because of this absolute, like I can see where they need to look straight up. Like I'm not a qualified medical person by any means, but I'm very highly knowledgeable about where someone needs to look and knowing the profiling. And I just, it's my lens and genius. And so when you're doing that for everyone else, but you just still have some missing pieces of your own. And this week I got some major hope from a doctor where they're actually getting results in this particular syndrome. And obviously, like, there's a metaphysics that I can learn from this experience, but I'm ready to fucking heal it. And if that is available, because they're saying there's new gene codes they've researched that are these underlying causes to that, I'm all for it, because I'm 42 and my plan is, the reason I put on like a fair bit of weight for I'm at my higher end. Everyone's got a high end, middle, and low end. So again, that swings to the left, swings to the right. But I want a good metabolism for my 40s to the 50s to the 60s. You know, that's the research of balancing hormones and strong body. And at the moment I'm repairing, and then I'm going to build, and then I'm going to be in my good set point. That's my plan. And through that I'll heal any emotional and traumas and stored stuff that comes up. But yeah, I just, what did you say? Oh God, I'm really struggling today, because I normally can come back to what was the thing we were first.
Tell me you got ADHD without telling me you got ADHD.
No, no, I'm really good. This is what I'm saying. Like, I'm actually really tired. Like, I think I went, like 5 years, and oh yeah, hiding, and so like I just, like, I've got a business that's still running, but I don't have anything to give. There's some things that I'm like healing in my altruistic personality that have to be no's without body boundary no's. So for me, I remember in my late 20s going through that healing and those and when I took the smoking and drinking and the dopamine like externals, and then the underlying was a weight issue in relation to trauma, it was really interesting, because I remember that like soul moment again. Oh, weight is protection. And like I actually feel like there's a few other personal things that happened recently that make me feel like I was having to protect myself. But first stage was fight or flight, catabolize. Second stage was like I'm in phase three stress response. And in my biotype, which is really cool info like that I get from the doctors, is I'm in phase three and my body just wants to go back to phase two, which is when I'm taking action, getting shit done. But I don't have that. I literally, for the first time in my life, in an ADHD crash, which I think is very different for women with women's hormones, because PMDD is actually part of ADHD, and then there's underlying genes that cause those ADHD anyway. So it's like the sewage pipes get all fucked up. But I genuinely just, for the first time when I've ever crashed, I can't give to someone else. And I've never been like that. And that's why showing up for this, I'm all cool, but I'm not going to over show up where I don't want to, because it's just, it's energy I need to heal myself with. So
Yep.
yeah, we're all freaking human. So that's my humanness, is hiding actually a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah.
So the reason why you and I have gone into all the realms of different possibilities, going through DeMartini, doing all the wild shit that we do, is because we've seen the fitness industry, we've seen, normal dietetics, calories in, calories out. We've seen all of that shit not work. We've seen people
100%.
get fucked up through hormones. We've seen people, not be able to measure something because, do skin folds, do this, do this, do this. And all of a sudden it's like, well, you haven't gotten a result. Did you eat all your food? Did you sleep properly? Like all of the usual like metrics that personal trainers will go through, or dietitians or whatever will go through. And there's not a result that is going through the data. So it's like, you've got this disconnect. It's like my client is showing up one way. I've given them a plan to be able to do everything and measure everything. Nothing's working. What the fuck is going on? And that's where things
Yeah.
like epigenetics comes in. That's where
Fuck
psychology,
yeah.
like all
Yeah.
of these
And
different.
stress response. I used to, as I said, back when I did that, I lost, like, that's what I'm saying. Most people don't know that the first thing I did when I ever put on weight as an adult was lose weight through parasympathetic. because I fucking ate and trained well. Like, I mean, I didn't know what I know bodybuilding wise, but I still trained since I was 22. Women didn't train back in those days in the gym. It was not a thing. I had photos of ab chicks in 2005 or 6 on Facebook when it first was out. All my guy friends were like, that's disgusting. Like now they're all like, look at this hot chick sending me reels still.
Yep.
And I'm like, think it's so hilarious. And I've never actually quite got the whatever the body that was like full jacked, because actually I kept getting pulled into like healing stuff every time I go too far there, which is obviously my masculine feminine fight and journey. But exactly, like that's why I got into personalized health and epigenetics, because I was like, I'd done these shapeshifter fat loss programs, fat loss for highly sensitive people, because I knew there was these endo bodies, or these bodies with more emotional prolactin stress response famine, because basically like for everyone on the call, it's about how our body deals with the famine, which is the stress response. That's the only thing the body still knows. And so these evolutionary body types have been developed. And so I can measure that with a profiling system now, which is epic. So I can go, well, Dave needs to check that the family's all good, because if he's going to try and do a comp and that shit's going down, prolactin's not going to be okay. And so he's going to have resistance in all of the things he tries. And for Hannah, it's like, well, if she's not getting oxytocin and safe connection, her body's not going to fucking lose weight. So she can't do a comp prep then. Or, you know, it doesn't have to be that extreme, but even like the personalized health thing, it's funny because all the so I was doing that well before I was in a fitness industry, and I was the weird one back then. I'm always like 10 years ahead, and it does my head in because I don't make as much revenue as it probably when if I was in the right alignment of the market, you know. Not that we're here for that, but you still gotta pay your bills and do all of that. But I remember being the weird odd one out with that, and you're a little bit the same. And then now it's all caught up. And so what I actually do with my business, so everyone knows, is like I put the fitness and the thermodynamics and all those principles together with someone's epigenetics, which becomes the method that sustains for them. So it's like the digestive system doesn't need 5 meals a day for this body type, and you know, they're better on keto, or they're better on, you know, so we clarify that puzzle piece. But one thing I want to say is that somatic work is now becoming the advertised fat loss thing. And I find that hilarious, because even me now going through another layer of like nervous system trauma, and like you would think like I don't eat anything different. Like I increased my calories intentionally, but most of what I'm holding is like fluid and like estrogen and like all of the dominating hormone things, but it's from a trauma response because the cortisol's just overtaking, and then with all those storage systems, like I said, with DNA. So yeah, it's fascinating. Hey.
Yeah. I've started referring a lot of people to this woman. Her name's Andrea, up in Orang, Harmony Health and Happiness or something like that is her name.
Okay.
She's like a Reiki master,
Yeah.
kinesiology, like, you know, that sort of thing. She does massage as well.
Parasympathetic, I'll call that
That's
stuff.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the fucking results that I've seen with my clients, mainly men, that I send to her and I go, like, I haven't seen her. I've never met her. I just got this deep
Wow.
intuition that was like, this is who you like. One thing that I pride myself on is my network. You know, my net worth is my network, because I can refer to fucking anyone because I have an expert in every field.
And you're a guardian, like it's your natural, like you're the
Yep.
people person. You're the Oprah, right? Like Oprah's inclusive, whereas Gary Vee's like lead from the front,
Yep.
get shit done, testosterone.
Yeah.
Not
So
saying you're not those things. Yeah.
I've been referring all these men to her to go get help and to, you know, clear up their nervous systems and clear up their, you know, electromagnetic fields, and, you know, just bring harmony back to their body, bring harmony back to their nervous systems. And they come back to me and they go, I don't know what the fuck that was, but like, I feel amazing. I'm like, and then I go, so how was your purge? How was your release? And they go, yeah, like I can't stop shitting myself, sort of thing. Like it's just purging out of me. I'm like, yes, this is what you need. This is the biggest thing that's holding you back, is your pent up nervous system is just holding on to all of this stress. And so now you've been put back in alignment through frequency, through whatever it is. And now you have a pathway to be able to eliminate so that you can get back into health. And health
this is the thing,
just like,
I've got a physiological measure of your epigenetic expression at any given time, which is your meat cloak that you chose to put over your consciousness at any given point, you know, if we want to go spiritual language. And then anyone else, it's fucking testosterone and, you know, like perceptions.
Yeah.
Even without DMartini, it's still, you can stand up and like pump your chest and turn up your test and turn down your cortisol. Like everything's somatic, from, you know, whether you go to that lady or you don't, you know, or you do a fitness program. But yeah, it's great integration, hey, because it's, and I think, you know, whenever I get lost down, as I said, the other way, that's when I get the swing back to this side, so I can soften and I can listen and I physically soften, and I'm not as like, because does my head in though. Sometimes it's hard work always like swinging so far. And I think that's that sensitivity piece we said. I'm like, fuck, tired of being tired about that one. But normally, like, I'll have a good 5 years or 6 years and I'm energized because I practice what I preach. But actually, my body is doing this so that I can rest because there is something to feel, deal, and heal. That's as far as I go with the language of it.
Yeah.
But like I went to an acupuncturist when I was younger, and I think for me, like I don't need the deep explanation of it. I'm so like, if I wear that costume, that's what I'm feeling into. So that's why I'm so resistant until like I resist firewall and then I'll let it in. So everyone who knows me, I push back straight away, but I'm listening, and that's why I do it, because I'm so sensitive to actually listening to things that I have to filter it. Um, it's a stranger danger kind of thing. Yeah, and I don't know. Again, I keep losing my points.
That's
It's
okay.
funny. I'm not normally like that.
So I was deathly sick about 25 years ago when I was a boy. I was about, I don't know, maybe 9 years old. Mum took me, like, none of the medications or anything that I was given was getting me better. I was sick with this flu and this, respiratory thing forever. Mum
Yeah.
took me to a Reiki healer, and that was my first experience of like somatic body work and, energy work and stuff like that. And I
Yeah.
was better the next day. Like, I was exhausted still because my body was still repairing from it, but who
Of
knows what I
course.
went through. It
Yeah.
was it was so eye-opening, and that was like my first time. And this is me being a weirdo. Like, a couple of years before, I used to hear voices screaming out for help when I was going to bed, and like, I'd take on so much from the field around me.
For sure.
And
Yeah.
just because I'm so sensitive, like, I would hear, and I would, like, not just hear, but I would feel people's desperation coming off them, and it's just
I
like
hear it.
they're
Yeah. I've always been
clinging
like
for a
that.
bit of help.
Yeah, I've always been that same sensitive person. And in my teenage years, as I said, it was like our family had all the alcoholism, and I feel like I was the empathic, because I'm the empathic one from mirror neurons. So and that's why, again, I'm so like visual, and that's where my dopamine does or doesn't come from, because of that occipital lobe used, like primary brain function is visual. So if I'm seeing like, and when I'm going through shit, it's fucking amped up, right? So I'm 10,000 times more sensitive, and that's why I hate it so much, because when I'm on and I'm testosterone, it's a bit of a fuck off field, and it does feel better. I feel more protect, but then that's a protection thing. So I want to find this, dense energy of, healing. But say my mom was a diplo, and that's the endo ecto combo. So she was on your side, and my dad would have been like a crusader, or a crusader with a bit of a connector. So very meso direct, and the three of us, my sister and I and my dad, were like that. But my mom took us to like naturopaths who did like, past life stuff, and then she'd give us the amethyst crystals, and then we went to meditation classes. Like, so I did do a lot of that stuff. I think I was just more razor. I'm more razor, just I have a high intuition. Like, I'm just this weird, like, and same thing. So I remember through my late 20s, when I'm going through the sensitive stuff, I was tuning into this house I lived in, where I was lying down one day and I thought someone was choking me and raping me. And it was full on intense. And then things kept happening in that house. And my boyfriend at the time, we had a nap in the oven, and he felt like he was getting choked. And it was just bizarre. Like, you don't make that up. And then and there was some energy in this house. And I remember um we asked the neighbors, because it was an old Italian house with the like pizza cooker at the back. So like that kind of vibe. And yeah, apparently the person that lived there, his brother hung himself, and the other one died in a car crash. And then this other guy was like a real army, really, he hurt someone that he was with or something, like domestic violence type thing. So that was actually like, again, like I'm always open to stuff, but I'm very like skeptical at the same time. So I have always been, and someone told me too about drinking and like, the spirits in bars. And I used to think, God, like the way I behaved when I was drinking, it's like that vulnerability is there and things can just attach to. And I actually do believe in that a little bit still. I think for me though, I just don't go down it. So I'm not conditioning my mind to like be looking for it. So I always look in retrospect at something spiritual, as but again, we as I said, you can't fucking deny there's some other thing in the sheath. So
100%. What are the
Yeah.
when you used to drink, what was, now talking about hindsight, what
Yeah.
were some of the energies that you used to notice when it came to different spirits that you would drink or different alcohols that would take over your body?
Don't know. Oh, I think, and because I can't not talk in like genetics. So what I know about my genetics now, it's so funny. I've got a very high blood sugar. So, naturally, and if I didn't live the way I lived, I probably would have turned on diabetes gene. I've just got that one little bit of genetic that's, a certain way. And so like sugary RTDs and all that girly shit was never good for me. So, but going back a step, when I was 16, when I got sent to AA, I was drinking straight scotch out of Macca's cups at a church wagging school, and very bad. McCallum Scotch, I think it was, and when we could afford it, we get the Johnny Walker. But I did that because I wanted to be like my dad, and I'd made this decision from my predator, wound, that firstly, what happened to me, men are stronger. Secondly, my dad was a bit of an intimidator. So I was like, okay, so I'm going to be an intimidator to, preempt. And so I did create some of my genes to be a bit more masculine. There is a bit of a wound there, but it was, so when I was 16, I would drink that because that's what my dad drank and he was my hero, even though if you put it on paper, he's a bit of a dick and a bit of an asshole, but at least you knew where you stood with him.
Mm.
Because it was direct and funny and fun, but like just definitely the dysfunction. And then through my 20s, I think I probably, because I'd been to AA, I was so cautious about what to drink, so I had to really test it. So I think it was just always like minimal sugars or like really, I don't know, I just could not drink wine, could not drink anything that was too quick. And now I look back, it's so funny. So fast forward, I didn't drink for 10 years at all. Thought I'd never drink again. Dad died, moved to Bali, had broken up with my boyfriend of 5 years. That was Jeff. And I drank and I just tested the waters and I was like, okay, but I didn't beat myself up. I was like, that's interesting. And I ended up going down like the self-destructive path. Like I was sort of self-abusing by the end of it. But long story short, when I came back, I quit drinking for 3 years, went straight back into just abstinence. But since taking like dim and deglucarate and going into the genetic stuff and knowing that I've got weak phase 1 and 2 detox pathways, so that's like, you can't get rid of all those toxins, and alcohol's poison and toxins for people, sugars as well. Also knowing that like I'm estrogen dominant, well, I was, now I'm lower in it, but I just don't methylate estrogen, dopamine, or adrenaline well, which is funny because we also have low dopamine receptors as ADHD. So I'm seeking dopamine, but when I get too much of it, that's when my crash fucks me even more. So all of this concoction, I take a lot of dim and deglucarate, and I stopped taking that at the end of last year, which I just told you today. And I actually think that it's put me into a really bad spot because it just, I need to get rid of those toxins, but I have not drunk alcohol. But over the last few years, I noticed I could have an espresso martini. Now, I don't do coffee well. I have to have quarter strength and I have to train and I have to like utilize the intensity because of my adrenaline genes. But I also can't do alcohol. So it's like alcohol is such a depressant. I was never able to really handle it. So I'd be anxious for days after and like depressed. And coffee, same thing. I've had to adapt to it over the years. But since taking those deglucarate and dim, I can have the upper and the downer of alcohol and caffeine. I don't get drunk on like 4 espresso martinis, but I always get a half strength. And I can drink that alcohol and it's fucking weird, but I know it's because of the methylation pathways and the detoxing and actually being able to handle it because I take those supplements. So that, I know that's long-winded, but that's actually like I look at it now from what my genetics can't handle, but now it's great. I mean, the good part was I got to deal with my trauma because it amplified shit. So yeah,
Mm.
I can drink, but I just, in this crash of hormones that I'm in at the moment, I would not touch alcohol because I don't think my system it would just be a negative. I don't think I'd ever lose my shit or be the way I was when I was younger because all my feelings get felt and I don't have suppressed stuff. I have to face it.
Mm.
In general, that was the gift in my not drinking for 10 years, but I definitely, it would fuck me up a bit to drink it now. So
Yeah, right. So like
yeah.
when it comes to like alcohol for myself, I'll go two ways with this. So for myself, I used to drink if I was drinking to get drunk and party, it was Jägermeister straight away, and it was Red Bulls with the Jägermeister. Like I used to bet people in clubs and pubs back in the day. I'd put $50 on the bar and bet people that I would beat them in drinking a Jaeger bomb, and they would have to drink. They would have to, pay the $50 and then buy the round as well. So I'd
Yeah.
end up going out with a couple of $100 and come home with more money because I'd
Yeah,
bet
yeah.
people that I'd
Because you
fuck
are
them up.
skilled at this.
Yeah,
I
like
could drink a lot, but I'd black out. So even Huberman has a really good podcast on that, about what the brain pathways do. I think it's a brain thing and it's a like methylation thing, to
that's
be
interesting.
honest. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when it comes like going into all my spiritual woo woo bullshit that I've done over the last, almost 10 years sort of thing, when I started learning to meditate, like, because I'm so fascinated with consciousness. It's
Yeah.
like anyone who hasn't opened their eyes to consciousness and meditation and breath work and, plant medicine and hypnosis and fucking all these other amazing things to be able to play and experience and be curious with consciousness, I don't understand you. That's a little caveat, but
That's the guardian philosophical. It's like I don't understand you if you don't understand what testosterone shows up in the body and
yeah,
where.
right.
Do you know what I mean? So I think, but I'm also very like you because I did do all those things and like I love listening to you on it. Like I think it's who you are. Like
Yeah.
it's a beautiful gift.
I
Yeah.
can't,
So
I can't not like I fucking when I dive down into something and I'm explaining something, I get lost when it comes to how far and wide I've gone. Like I used to when I was learning about consciousness and meditation and understanding that when you have food or like whenever you consume anything, regardless of what it is, whether it's like psilocybin mushrooms or it's fucking a piece of cheese or alcohol or coffee or whatever you have, that is interacting with your consciousness. And so I used to
I
meditate
agree.
on beer. I used to meditate like on wine, and like I've done so many different interactions with different types of alcohols. And the thing that I've learned is like it all carries an energy. It all carries an interaction with your consciousness and your expression, your genetics,
Yeah.
your predispositions. Like
I
I
love
can't drink
this.
rum, I can't drink bourbon, I can't drink any of like the redder, darker sort of spirits. They fuck me up, and I don't know if it's the way that it's the sugar inside of it or like what it is, but it just doesn't interact well.
Probably with a guardian like predisposition, but then again, like we said, like when we view your epigenetics as your meat cloak of your consciousness expressing, same thing. It's like when I'm in a certain constitution, I can handle one type of thing, but not another, like depending on if I'm more testosterone and less estrogen.
Mm,
Super interesting. Hey, I
yeah.
actually love this. Like that, like, so what would you say in the same question to you, but from like what you've got a nice interest in expressing it as? So what's the metaphysical consciousness, like relativity to red and dark alcohols, or like what do you think from a consciousness perspective and a philosophical perspective each alcohol represents, or your experience on that?
That's an interesting question. The first place I'd start would be genetic. So I've got some uncles that love Bundaberg, like rum,
Yeah.
and I've watched them get drunk and get violent, get
Yeah.
very loud and abusive and stuff like that. And so I think there's an unconscious bias there for me to not want to become like that because I'm the black sheep. I'm the fucking weirdo of the family. I reject everything that my family considers as normal, and so I pave my own path. And so whenever I see them drinking rum, I just turn that off. I'm like, no, like that's, if that's their genetic predisposition to be like that, because I've seen all of them do it, I don't want a
Yeah.
bar of that. Same
Yeah.
thing with bourbon. Bourbon's not so much like a genetic thing. Bourbon's more like I've watched a lot of people turn into fuckwits when it comes to drinking JDs or drinking Jim Beam and stuff like that. They just turn into
That's
assholes.
a
So I'm like,
bogan alcohol. I'm
it
just
is such a
snobby
bogan
about it.
alcohol, isn't it?
Yeah.
However, whenever I drink something that's like, like Jägermeister is my favorite. I can drink that shit fucking any time of day, all day, every day.
I was a Suntory promo chick for like the state, and so yeah, many many free Jaeger spa nights I've had. Oh god.
Yeah. And like, so coming from an ADHD perspective, anytime that as someone with ADHD, because, people with ADHD, ASD, they're so prone to addiction because it regulates our mind. It regulates our nervous
100%.
system.
Well, and there's dopamine, we're getting a hit. So as I said, I watch it show up. Like if I eat protein bars, I know it's like seeking dopamine, or it's like if it's something with like my protein powder with sugar, because I eat pretty damn clear. Because also in those times when I'm low in it, I'm fucking wanting peanut butter, and go and look up what that is dopamigenic,
Yep.
So it's fascinating, isn't it? And
It's
that's
so
why I think
wild.
you have that crusader element to it. Yeah, so it's kind of like, yeah, it's just a part of that.
It's so interesting to look at everything, like look at life through the lens of like all these different filters. I wish everyone watching this or listening to this, or even you, could see into my mind and the way that I visually represent everything. It's like I've got this computer dashboard in my mind and I can pinpoint everything. It's visually, my mind is stunning. And I look at everything, I'm like, fuck, I wish you guys could be in here and see everything that I'm seeing and make the connections that I'm making. Because to me, it makes a hell of a lot of sense. It's like you're presenting me with this criteria here and this like um expanding, bunch of panels of all the information that I've had and all these things that I've learned. It's like, oh, cool, well, this relates and all these things here. And now I can give it to you and go, here, this is what you need. It just makes, to me, it makes sense. And people do it and they go, oh man, I feel the best that I've ever felt. I'm having the greatest relationship I've, all these different things. And
This is what I
they,
mean. We have that ADD hyperfixation gift in our genius, and so yeah, we see shit other people don't see. It's like the mind is just fucking over analyzing and racing. So I mean, that's why, like, for my burnout, I actually think it was a lot of ADHD, but I was having a trauma running, a few traumas running, and then a crash. And at the time, though, like, just like overthinking how to do the back end of my business and overthinking how to do this for that client and these lead gens and like all that. And I just, like, it's every entrepreneur has it, but I think it's amplified when you're like ADHD and you just like, and as I said, with the sensitivity of my hormones. And so I, yeah, I was really freaking sad that I crashed because, when I was holding it and I could feel that holding that, but like my razor like on dopamine brain picks up shit that you just don't pick otherwise. But we're so sensitive and going so far ahead, that we just know what's going to happen before it's going to happen,
yeah, we're very good
you
at
know,
pattern recognition.
100%. And like it's also just amplified by, I think too, like you have this, and I said this to my mom because my mom's been really good about like the diagnosis as well. It's like, that bit of validation from the childhood thing and understanding a bit better. And it was, I said to her, I was like, one good thing is, yeah, the talent to hustle and figure out the fucking way that's not normal to get an outcome. So you kind of like, it's a two-edged sword because you miss all these details and there could be a chaotic kind of like charge because dopamine tunnel, but it's also like a skill. Like but again, it's polarity, right? So, for me, I feel like, put all the, trauma and body stuff aside, I was on a mission and I got in the tunnel vision and I was seeking dopamine. It wasn't just fantasy, but on that crash, I've now got to pick up the pieces of all the details and the bits and the foundations. And it was like, you just miss one thing in that tunnel vision and it's like the chain's as strong as its weakest link, and the whole chain undoes, but it's a gift and it's just a way of, that's why I think, I don't know, I know your partner, but I don't know what she's like. But I think people like us need like really grounded partners and really, I find as a female, it's a little bit harder because to be the one that wants to go off and run and race and then have a grounded. So, I'm in an age where like I think I've dated people with that same predisposition and different constitutions and body type, but it's like not good. It's
Mm,
like amplifying everyone's. Well, I think again, if you look at ADHD as a trauma response in epigenetics, I don't know. There's many conversations on ADHD, like from Gabor Mate but yeah, it's
yeah.
it's definitely intense.
Yeah, intense is the right word. That's me to a T. I got a memory
Yeah.
that just popped up then from that intense word. It was probably start of 2019. I was working with one of the PTs that was at World Gym Burley.
Mhm.
And we just finished doing our coaching session where we were talking about how to generate business and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
we came out. The owner of World Gym Burley was there, and she was, eavesdropping into our conversation. We had a bit of a talk, and then I walked off, turned around, and I went, "Oh, Dylan, I need to get you this thing straight away." And she looks at me and starts laughing and goes, "Dave, you're so intense with everything you do." And I like it. It was like a fucking knife in my heart. I was just like,
Yeah.
"That's
We don't know. Well, like,
not learned. This is who I am. I don't do subtle. I'm fucking straight as an arrow and I'm intense. That's me.
But you're much calmer since you've been like, on this diagnosis, and I can see that, but you've centered as well. And same with me, it's like I was too intense one way and now I've been muted a little bit and I would like to come back to the middle a bit more.
Mm.
But yeah, like for me, it's the oversharing. Well, actually, it's funny because I watched the two types of ADHD play out in me. It's like when I'm in that dopamine body, like which even in like I get leaner. I'm just always lean in dopamine, because you are turning down that prolactin apex or whatever the reason, or just pursuit and like not taking nutrition absorption or whatever it is, when you're in that kind of fight or fight kind of body type.
Mm.
But yeah, I definitely saw like I was getting really confused. Like I was actually fucking things up. And I watched things and I was like, what the fuck was I doing when I wrote that email? Like I'm just like, what drugs was my brain on? So it's a real neurology thing. And now like I sat down when I actually finally crashed and allowed myself to like, thank God for my genetic understanding and the psych that I talked to in our genetics. And because because for me, rest and digest is so it's actually bad because I am that fight or flight body. So I had to like parasympathetically slow down and like still move slowly and keep that safety. But I remember just the day I was like allowing myself to let go. And then when I was lying in bed, I was like, I'm going to have a look at all the videos I created last year in this megalomaniac kind of hyper fixated state. I was like, fuck, they're pretty genius. Like I was like I looked on, I was lean, I was bossing it, like because I was in my hyper fixated, but I chose my business to be my top value. So I was in my executive center, but I still crashed.
Yep. Yep.
But again, it just shows like the coach, we lead by example. And so I'm in a repair phase and we're human.
Yeah. Like the biggest thing that I live by and I show up with is transparency, authenticity, and vulnerability. Like
Yeah.
all of the things that I go through, all of the lessons I've learned, all the cool shit that I've done, all the bad shit that I've done, everything, my experience is for teaching. Like,
Yeah.
I want people to understand life through a different lens. That's through me, through my chaos.
Yeah.
I want to show up as authentically as possible because people can learn from me. Like,
Yeah.
that's the whole reason I do what I do. And you're the same. Like
Well, I'm real and genuine. I'm less vulnerable. I don't like vulnerability because I'll be vulnerable, but I'm private. Like I
yeah.
am quiet, and that's because it's not, yeah, I don't know why. And I only realized that since we were talking like, the last about doing this stuff right now. But I have shown up more this crash than I ever have. But do you know what it is? I'm a panther and cats don't show their vulnerability in the wild.
Yeah.
So there's no need for me to do that. I don't feel like, yeah, I'm real. I put on weight. I crash. I have hormone issues. Like I can't be super on, but that's the athleticism and that's the argument that I have with some people like, like you, who is like, just because your value is that, I do want to put a barrier there because it's actually safety for me. So yeah.
But you
What are your
see,
thoughts on
the way
that?
that I think about it,
Yeah.
talk about the bear. How does a bear fight? The bear stands up on its hind legs. It shows its belly because it knows that it's so strong. It's got this giant head with these giant, strong fucking jaw that it can clamp on anything and kill anything. These giant hands to claws to be able to rip shit apart. When I feel like I'm at my strongest, I can stand up and bare my chest and bare all of my vital organs and everything like that and go, you can fucking try it and hurt me if you want. I know how strong I am. I know
But
how
your constitution's strong, exactly. Whereas
exactly.
I'm not. I'm actually like, I don't want to show up vulnerable because as I said, I'm a cat. And that's my symbol as an activator connector. I'm not safe. Like if people know and I've had that happen when I show, because I am open, I show my vulnerabilities and I have a predator who takes advantage of that. So I'm not doing that. Like that's actually my safety. I'm going to go to get my connection from people I trust and I'm still going to pretend that I'm good. And so it's funny because when I really realized that this time, I was like, yeah, that's why I shut down. That's why I retract because cats don't show that in the wild. Like you'll get eaten. So yeah, I'm not a bear. I don't have a big, strong, isn't it interesting? Because I really think that's true. Every time, well, from a symbol and woo-woo perspective, whenever I see who I am, it's a panther. And you can't, that's why I struggle with relationships too. I'm loyal as fuck and I will just, like, I'm there to be together, but I'm very independent and you can't cage me. And yeah, it's quite interesting. It's quite, and it's the divine feminine as well.
Mm.
And my feminine is very yang still. I'm a nurturer, but I'll brutally tell you, as you know, if you're being a martyr.
Yep.
Again. Well, I don't mean it. It's just I'm just a direct communicator as well, and I think the ADHD is getting that filtered a little. I actually want to do a communication course, because I get taken the wrong way because of my intonations, and I think that's the autism-y ADHD like way I speak. Because and even like being a fight or flight body, I speak from here. Like I'm not like, whereas you would be long exhalations and groundedness, whereas I'm actually up and in my chest, and if I'm walking, I'm grounded,
Mm.
so diaphragmatic breathing is kind of more pertinent for me. And as I said, I'd like to speak a little better in the way I communicate, just like say to my boyfriends or friends or whatever, because I get taken the wrong way because of
Yeah.
that directness. So that's probably deportment class for me rather than like a spiritual meaning behind it.
Mm. Yeah, like that was very much me when I went and did all like my NLP and everything like that, because I
Yeah.
don't like ultimately because I'm autistic, I don't understand people. I've hyper fixated and I become over analytical
Yeah.
by watching people. And so when I watch people, I'm hyper vigilant because I don't want because I've been considered weird my whole life and
Yeah.
broken rapport and stuff like that with people. I
Yeah.
will I will watch everything deliberately and I'm listening intently for
Yeah.
tone of voice changes, tempo
That's a
changes.
guardian thing too, though.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm sitting here being hyper vigilant to understand that am I correct? Is how I'm showing up and communicating socially acceptable with this person?
Mm.
Am I meeting them where they're at, or am I being
Mm.
perceived as, off?
That's interesting. Yeah, yeah. And I think we have to have that awareness with ADHD because it can be a bit much, like you said before. For me, it's visually picking up on shit that's just and taking it on. Like I remember the first time I realized I was empathic. And I'll tell you like my view on that. So back when I was like 27, one of my friends, sadly he took his life. But we were hanging out one time. We went for a walk, and I said, "Are you feeling pain in your chest?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Because I'm feeling something that's not mine." And I remember, like, that's a literal physical feeling. That's not just like a perception of his emotions and like me fucking running it through my psychology. And I remember that, and I was like, "Fuck, that's how sensitive I am." And I was like, "Okay, whatever." And I was a bit more woo back then, but ever since when I got profile, I was told that I'm like high mirror neurons, which means I'm great at sales and coaching and all that, but I take it all on. And literally it's that's the visual piece, And so for you, I'm a shit listener by default, like clearly, but that's my biotype. But guardians are really fucking good at listening, and they look for tonality in their brain function. And my brain function is watching you, and I'll pick up on shit even unconsciously to see if I trust you. I'll pick up, again, that's my hypersensitivity in ADHD and skill of like what a client needs. And yeah, exactly. I think last year too, coaching clients, and I try and stay away from fat loss, but it always veers back into it. And I was getting all my clients these amazing results, and I was lean last year, but then I feel like I took all their weight on, like I literally do, and I can't. I don't want any more of that, And
Mm.
it's literally it's a mirroring thing, had a past client sent me she's starting our cleanse, which is amazing. She's a friend, but she sent me her before photos and her weight before, and I was like, I didn't ask for that, like I would like allow that, but I've got to put these boundaries at the moment because I don't want to see it, like, so yeah, it's quite interesting.
Yeah, I had a client ask me last week how I deal with all the shit that my clients tell me, like how I deal emotionally with it and all these sorts of things.
Mm,
And I told him that because I've lost a couple of clients to suicide over the last, 4 years sort of thing, every time that I have a conversation, I've figured out a way of framing it in my mind that I literally put a box around it and energetically leave it behind wherever we are. So
Yeah.
we're in the gym the other night, and I was telling him, about the experiences that I've had with clients that have killed themselves. So during the COVID lockdowns in 2020, I had two people that were really close to me that were both ex-clients that ended up taking their own life, just because the weight of the world got on their shoulders. And in that time, we can all remember it was pretty fear inducing, just because we didn't know what the fuck was going on. And people's bills were coming out and all these different things. And I open up my social media, and all of a sudden there's two people missing out of this life. And it's
Yeah.
because I and be working with them, knowing their traumas, knowing their family history, like all the different things that we did through them. Like I lost a big part of myself because I took on that burden. I took on that, the pain of them leaving, sort of thing. The same thing
Yeah.
happened at the end of 2021. I had a client who was going through a really painful divorce. He was a property developer on the Gold Coast, and like he had a portfolio that was worth like $150 million. Through the divorce, he ended up with only like maybe $200,000 in his bank account after losing everything. Lost the business, lost fucking everything, lost the kids. Like he
Yeah.
had nothing. And then we did a lot of work to be able to heal him. And then one of the straws that broke the camel's back was his dad was on his deathbed and looked at him. One of the last words he said to him was, "You are the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life." And so he took that on straight
Jesus.
away. And then it was coming close to Christmas, and he's dumping all of this on my shoulders. And I took it all on. I took it all on. And then I found
Yeah.
out a couple of months later, like after he stopped contact with me, that he ended up committing suicide. And so I figured out that like I can't wear this shit anymore because I'm so fucking sensitive. I have to
Yeah.
put a box around it and energetically put it
It's
somewhere else.
a
Go, this is
two-edged sword. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like I have to like, I visually have to take myself out, like, and that's why, even when I don't see myself visually how I want or how I feel I am, it's frustrating because, like as I said, I'm an agile cat. I need to look like I can athletically perform.
mm,
But again, it's just life and there's so many like things, and I totally feel you on like when it comes. That's why I never did psychology or became one of those kind of, um like I don't want to go into deep stuff. I actually don't. And that's where like, I don't want to be deeply philosophical because I have my own sensitivities and I don't think it's healthy for me. So simple, more surface works for me in certain areas. And like, I'll leave that other stuff to like, yeah, my friendships with someone like you. And, like, and I love that, like where I say I'm very physical, but I would come to someone like you because I know you respect that. And we've had conversations recently where you get through to me because you've got that ability. But yeah, I'm super as well. Like, because I am so empathic. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'll take on good and bad traits dating someone. It doesn't even matter what I do. It's just that mirroring is there. Um, and I can't turn it off because I can't. And it's just like you can't turn off being a guardian, having empathy. Like we're both empathetic based on a hormone profile. um yeah, so we just have to learn tools. I know that dusting it off, I think, like the Celestine prophecy talks about like how we have the control dramas and we steal energy, and then we want to like we someone takes our energy like a fight and then they go aloof and they steal energy back doing that, like all these predispositions that I think are genetic but also exacerbated by our upbringings and traumas and all that stuff. But when you think about it, when we give it back to the universe instead of stealing it from each other, like going and jumping in the ocean, or mine is going for a walk outside near the beach with the negative ions of nature, or prayer or meditation, or like I do think that we do, or like I haven't done plant medicine, but I want to. But yeah, giving it back to Mother Nature, and to transcend it through that. I think that is actually why so many people healing is so powerful and paramount, and especially like you said, if you go back to the thing we were talking about with the normies, I guess, the less sensitive people that don't have to go there, everyone can take from that. Like, everyone feels better when they go to a soak spa because they're tapping into like, again, nature and like outside of themselves to heal and dissipate the condensed energies of the city. And like everyone feels it. We're just, it's like addiction. I think Kerwin Ray talks about it the most, is that spectrum. So it's like you're either here and mildly addicted, or you're like fully. Mine was fucking obvious, like 16 years of age, I'm getting drunk at a church and like all my shit's coming out. So like you know, it was pretty early on. Same with like I was a pack a day smoker. But this is my thing on addiction and those kind of sensitivities too. Who is more addicted? The person who smokes a packet of cigarettes a day, or the person who has a cigarette once a month just when they're out having a drink? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
That's interesting. I hmm.
I'm just going to do one quick one.
I would say it depends on the energetics of the pain for when it's going to be taken away.
Okay, yeah, no, that's a good it's probably exactly what I would say the answer. I mean, again, I'm not the fucking gospel in life, but I did get taught that it's like it's so evident and obvious that a pack a day smoker is addicted, right? They know, the fucking world knows, like everyone thinks they're the worst. But exactly, it comes down to the underlying dependency. And so if you took that once a month cigarette away from that person, would they get through life the same? You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like it does, because they think they're less addicted. It actually fucks them up because they're actually not. Because if you took it away, like, because they've always got that, you know, kind of knowing that it's there at some point in a month's time, whereas like us full sensitive, you know, like getting dopamine every 5 seconds. And I know for me, because cigarettes was the hardest thing for me to quit. And that's why I look at these vapes and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like,
Mm.
nicotine's pretty, you know, but it just shows like coffee and nicotine. Like I didn't drink coffee for I was never addicted to that. I am now, but it's like quarter strength. But it is, I watch myself when I'm stuck in trying to hold dopamine. Because even for me too, like I said, with that secondary gene, like the gene with the low dopamine receptor to start with, then needing to actually like I don't metabolize adrenaline, dopamine, or estrogen well. And those are the things I have to dopamine and adrenaline I increase while I'm seeking dopamine. It's fucked up. And so, yeah, I have to watch for that like next crash when I come back. I'm hoping to be preventative.
Mm.
I'm going to have to go soon,
All
but
good.
yeah,
Good.
good
Something I
chat.
just wrote down that I want to thank you for is when you said that you were addicted to caffeine. I was like instantly, am I addicted to it? I drink a lot of
Yeah.
it because I really
Mm.
enjoy it. I fucking love the taste of it. I love an
Yeah. See,
espresso.
I don't love all that, but yeah.
Yeah. See, I'm wondering, am I actually? So I think I'm going to
Well,
run an
try and
experiment
take it
to
away.
see,
Yeah,
yeah, see
exactly.
if I can
Look,
pull it away.
I don't think it's a bad, because when I do the research, I look at it from a health perspective and a why. Exactly. I like to test if I can take something away and not be dependent on it, then I think it's good. And it's a good to periodize anything, training, food, whatever. I used to be anti coffee, but that was because I have adrenaline genes that don't actually in my genetics don't handle it very well.
Mm.
But I know that it's better dopamine than something else. But again, it's always about the pattern that's playing out and can I go without it and can I break it? So I love that. So yeah, let's both do a coffee. Oh, actually, you and I should have a chat and we should probably get you to do the maybe the gene cleanse, which we take the coffee out and see
Yeah.
if you do that, because we haven't revised anything with your I see some really cool shit with the body type stuff, but we can have a chat about that. Maybe you and I can do a quick coffee challenge.
Hell yeah. That sounds like a plan.
Yeah, and do
Hannah, it's been
some
absolutely
follow-ups.
amazing chatting with you. Thank you for joining me here. Is there anything you want to leave everyone with?
No, just really good chats. Love our integration, and maybe we'll chat again after our coffee conquering.
Hell yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you next week. Thank you for being with me today. Thank you for subscribing and leaving a review. It really helps us out. Until next time, take care and much love.